that like conservatives, especially now, have so much power, and Christianity is such a huge power structure.
God.
They see themselves as the oppressed.
It is wild.
And not the oppressor. Every single time.
They end up talking about how the progressives are blockading Trump and they stop him from doing everything he wants, and you just sit here as a progressive going, God, I wish that was true.
Right, yeah. I love that.
Wish they actually...
Now, of course it's going to be a doozy. We have freaking Fundie Fridays on the weekly recap.
You guys are Fundie Fridays.
No. You are literally Fundie Fridays.
That's
like you guys
who you
run
are.
the YouTube channel. That's who
So
you
I've
are.
been told.
That's who you are.
Well. Special edition of the recap. We'll call this the Friendsgiving edition. Friends, good to see you and be with you back on the weekly recap. I'm Tim Whitaker with April LaJoy, and joined for the first time, I think, ever on, not on this channel, because we did a crossover live a few months ago, but definitely as far as like an official piece of content, I got King James and Jen from Fundie Fridays.
Howdy.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving,
to be
pilgrims.
here.
I love it.
Happy
Good to see you.
Friendsgiving.
I think at
This
this
rules.
point, most of our YouTube audience comes from seeing my live with you guys, so most probably know who you are. But just in case they don't, give us the short version of who you guys are, what you do, etc.
Well, I am Jen, and this is my husband, or what are they called? Headship.
Yeah.
Headship. James. They call him King James on the channel, because I think, wasn't King James also bisexual?
I thought
He
it
was.
just had to do with the book.
Allegedly.
That is my favorite fact.
I'm learning new stuff about me and the Bible all at once.
Well, we have a YouTube channel. You're goofy. We have a YouTube channel called Fundie Fridays. Originally, it was just me, and then you jumped on because it just got to be too crazy. But I talk about different aspects of Christian fundamentalism, American conservative politics, pop culture, and gay stuff. And it's kind of like commentary, video essays, whatever we want to do. We try to keep a good sense of humor about it, but it's a fun time.
Well, the interesting thing about both of you is that most of the creators that April and I meet in this space have a fundamentalist upbringing. I mean, April was literally on the Jim Baker show, singing songs about God blessing America, right? That's like her literal background. I grew up homeschooled and fundamentalist, but you guys came at this from a whole different aspect. You kind of fell into it. I just tell me that story, because I think it is so fascinating.
Would you like to go?
Sure. Well, and I mean, we both have different but similar paths to the whole thing. Essentially, the two of us neither one of us grew up particularly religious. My family kind of flirted with it a little bit. And for the most part, my only connection to religion back then was my two buddies. My two best friends in high school were one Southern Baptist and one Presbyterian. So I got to see
two genders.
The two genders. So I got to see Christianity at its most dichotomous throughout high school, I would like to say. But I also got to see it at its most humanized. You kind of see the overlap, the similarities, and the differences between these different types of faiths. And so that's how I came to everything. And
it just was a part of the culture where I grew up. I've never been a Christian, but like I can speak the language, or wait, what is it? Sorry. I can understand it, but I can't speak.
You can read it.
Exactly.
Right.
So
it started with the Duggars. Truly, they were my special interest, and then once you learn about them, then I started to see the web get bigger and bigger, and then now, I don't know, I like it here.
It is quite the web.
It's so fascinating. I just love learning about like Christian culture, because it's a whole actual culture. Like, it has been existing alongside secular, and it's just like there's all this stuff to learn about, and it's so interesting.
Well, Oh, go ahead, James.
Well, I was just going to say, we love being in the space too, because the one thing we've talked about a lot, and that people have told us, is that because we don't have that background and we don't have that trauma associated, we can kind of approach things maybe a little differently or a little more actively. Because, as I said, nobody told me I was going to hell when I was a kid, so I don't feel that twinge in my gut, and I can stick up to those people maybe a little better than someone who has that trauma does. So it's nice to be able to fill that role.
Well, no, and you guys do a great job. I mean, I think you have, 450,000 subs on YouTube right now, or close to 500?
401. You're being far too nice.
All right. Well, either way, you have a lot.
Amazing.
You have a lot of subscribers, okay, on YouTube. Your content does great.
I don't know how it happened.
And To be clear, you guys do a lot of work because
Yeah.
your videos are hours long. Your Ali B. Stuckey deep dive was 4 hours long. It was
so
a
triggering.
it was a Lord of the Rings extended edition cut of Ali Stuckey.
We do want everyone to know, if you watch the Allie Beth video, according to OSHA, you are legally required to take a 15-minute break in the middle. That's a labor
I would
standard.
agree with that.
We can't stop that. We get in trouble if you don't. So
I love that.
I just
love
can't.
that.
You would be surprised how much I actually cut from that video.
Oh, no, I believe it. I mean, we say often that right-wing commentators are fire hoses, right? They say so many things so often, it's impossible to kind of capture all of it to respond. So even though 4 hours is long, it makes sense because Ali is prolific in that regard, where she's always saying something, she always has an opinion, her team is always cutting up her clips, they're always doing well on social media, and a lot of what she says is just so incredibly disingenuous or just not true. And it can take time to kind of go through the arc of one commentator, let alone all the other ones. So that makes complete sense. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, well, enough about Ali B. Stuckey. This is not what we're here to talk about because people
We
can go
could.
watch
She's
that
probably
4-hour
said
interview.
something today.
Lord knows we got enough
Yeah.
time.
No doubt about it. We did just I'm not sure if the right word is celebrate Thanksgiving, given all of the colonialism and genocide associated with like the holiday stuff.
tolerated
Yeah, I mean we most of us probably ended up at some kind of family or friend's house to eat a meal because nationally the holiday on paper is Thanksgiving. And I was wondering how you guys, I mean, me and April always talk about this. I know around the holidays, it's a really important topic, how you navigate family stuff, like how you navigate seeing people in your life that maybe you're attached to by blood or whatever, that might have very different, even might we say harmful views about, our neighbors. So I was just kind of curious for you guys, what your thoughts were on navigating Thanksgiving and the next couple of holidays, because I know a lot of people are asking that. But before you answer it, I have to roll my stinger that I didn't roll yet. I'm super late on this. So let me look real
Rude.
professional. Let's roll our stinger. There we
We
go.
ain't got
Okay,
nothing
now
like that.
Yeah, that's fancy.
we've officially started. We're officially started. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what you guys do for the holidays. I see family. I see a lot of people that maybe on paper I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure how to navigate some of these political tensions. Any insight? Anyone?
I have one foolproof trick that I've used for years as my family's last island of progressivism.
Yeah,
I think anymore. And it's very simple, which is you pick your favorite billionaire and you start loudly complaining. And what I've learned is everyone hates billionaires. They may not even realize it, but you sit down and it doesn't even matter. Pick your favorite one. Just pick the one you can complain about the most and say, man, I hate how this guy's doing this and this and this. And most people will be like, yeah, that sucks. Oh God. Oh, I hate that. And all of a sudden you're talking about wealth inequality. You're talking about wage gaps. You're talking about tax policy. And everyone hates. That's the role billionaires. Honestly, I've been trying to rack my brain on it and figure it out. That's the role they serve in our society. They are the universal hatred. And so if you can think of a billionaire and you can pick, it doesn't really matter.
I don't know about some of them like Elon. A lot.
I don't.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
they're
there's
kind of
only-
big
I mean,
Elon fans.
We're going to pick on Mark Rubio.
James,
Pick on-
I agree.
Or wait,
I agree
who's
with
guy-
the sentiment.
Bezos or Cuban. Buffett's
I
also
meant
a
Mark
good
Cuban.
one.
I said Mark Rubio.
Oh, I love
Oh.
Mark Cuban,
Yeah.
actually.
See? Oh my God. We all love billionaires. No.
I don't love nobody in that category.
But see, April. But here's the thing. I like Mark. I watch Shark Tank too. Shouldn't probably, but I do. But the thing is, you can be like, man, I like what he's doing.
I like Lori the
I just
best.
wish he didn't have to manipulate all that Texas tax policy to do it. He doesn't have to do all that. He's smart. And all of a
That's
sudden,
fair.
they're with you.
My fandom of Mark Cuban, though, goes back to the Dallas Mavericks as a big Dallas
Very
Mavericks
reasonable.
fan.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And so this is a total sidebar. It has nothing to do with our show, but I
why
worked
not?
for the Dallas Mavericks the one year that they won
you
the
done?
NBA championship. But when I say worked, I worked the home games and I was one of the t-shirt throwers. So that was, I
Yes.
made $50 a
T-shirt
game.
cannon.
I literally would have done it for free. But I remember when I graduated with my bachelor's, I emailed Mark Cuban because I had his email from working at the Mavericks. And I was like, hey, here's my resume. You know, I shot my shot. It's like, here's my resume. I would love to work for the Dallas Mavericks. And he actually emailed me back and was like, we don't have anything opening right now, but please keep us posted. Best of luck. He was so nice. And ever since then, I was like, I'm a Mark Cuban fan.
He
All
can
right,
go
well,
last in the line.
We'll go.
for the
Here's the
guillotine.
one I'm going to tell you because Musk is tricky right now. Bezos, he's the one.
Yeah, we
If
know.
you need
all
a
hate
good
on him,
starting
yes.
point,
Yeah.
everyone hates Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, I can get behind
And
that.
that's it'd be like you can like, everybody's got an Amazon story, and all of their Amazon stories reveal the inefficiency of this kind of capitalism. And so, if you just start that point, all of a sudden they're talking socialist rhetoric with you, and they didn't even realize it.
Right. Well, half of them think that the Affordable Care Act is something else.
I like to leave that one alone because that's going to end up in me having to reveal an uncomfortable truth, and I'm trying to win souls in this moment.
Wow.
I'm not trying to. If I got you, then I'm going to lose you. That's the problem.
I like how you think, James. I obviously Elon Musk I think is the billionaire that most people hate, except for right wingers, which is so crazy to me because these are the same people who say that the elites are controlling everything, and literally an elite, the world's richest man, bought an entire social media network, turned it into a Trump megaphone, and essentially you could argue helped to quote unquote rig the election by literally doing that. I'm being a little facetious
Him and
here,
Peter
but you get
Thiel.
the point. Yeah, and then they're like, oh, Elon's a man of the people. No, he's not. This man lives in an alternate reality. He is worth so much freaking money, most of it earned unethically, and he spreads misinformation. Like, I'm not sure if you guys saw the report that they did a study on who spreads the most misinformation on Twitter. Elon Musk, the guy who owns it, was the biggest purveyor of misinformation on Twitter. And these, these right wing, the people need to rise up and take back the country, are like, yes, I'm so glad that a billionaire is right next to Trump, as if Elon has their best interests in mind. Like, yeah, I can picture it now. Elon's like, guys, I think on second thought, I'm too rich. And I think the ethical thing to do is to give away my billions of dollars to make sure everyone gets a fair wage in America because I'm a man of the people. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Ugh.
See,
So
there is a
frustrating.
way though you can get Elon with them though, and it's very specifically. I tell people, go pull up the Cybertruck debut, the one where he throws the ball at the window.
Yes.
Not that part though. Not that part. At
Okay.
the beginning of that presentation, he systematically tries to basically say that every pickup truck that has been made in America over the past 50 years is not as good as his pickup truck. And I'm like, oh, so you're going to insult American auto. You're going to make garbage and then try to tell us it's better. And I hate you. I didn't have a third point. So,
Well, under capitalism, everyone thinks that they are a millionaire or billionaire that just hasn't happened yet.
Right. Like an
So that's why they're
unrealized one.
so
Yeah.
obsessed with these people and look up to them.
it's like
By the
Fry
way,
from Futurama.
Elon-
when I get rich,
Elon-
people like me better watch out.
Elon completely lied about the Cybertruck. I mean, if you watch that Cybertruck presentation, the starting cost is more than double than what he said. The production, I mean, everything that they said, even torque, range, not true. So there are tons of videos showing how the Cybertruck literally is a piece of shit. It
It is the most dangerous. When those things catch on fire, they can't get you out.
No.
You just
Yes.
burn in the
Yes.
Cybertruck.
And by the way, I called the Cybertruck a piece of shit, not Elon Musk. Okay, that was not dehumanization. I called the truck a piece of garbage, which it is. I mean, you can watch the reviews. They were telling people because the gas pedal, well, the go pedal, I don't know, it's an electric car. The go pedal was sticking to the ground. And they were like, yeah, just use some
gets
soap. Just use some
the edge
soap.
of it is too long and it gets trapped under the top of the floor mat.
Bro, you're telling me I
Right.
paid $100,000 for this vehicle and I need to put soap underneath the pedal to fix a sticking problem that you should have fixed at the factory? Give me a break.
It's a
But hey, don't worry, guys.
pre-rendered
Don't worry.
PS3 graphic.
Elon is going to solve government waste. Him and Vivek Ramaswamy in their Doge, was it Department of Government Efficiency Operation?
And Marjorie Taylor Greene now.
Oh my God.
They
Was it
assigned her
Angus?
over there.
I knew it.
Comfortable.
I knew they were going to give her something bigger.
Wait,
I knew
wait.
Marge was going up.
did you guys see the tweet of AOC totally roasting her? Oh my
Yeah.
God, it was so good.
Shit.
Hold on, I'll pull it up. I'm trying to find it. It was. I want to read it because it
Are we
was
gonna talk
so
about
hilarious.
Matt Gates today?
I don't know. I was going to say Marjorie is one of my. If you watch Fundie Fridays, you might know Marjorie is one of my personal special interests. I find her as fascinating as I find her horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, let me pull up
Yeah.
this. Here's the tweet. I'll put it on the screen too, so we can. Now, maybe April, you're good at reading tweets. If you want to read this one. There you go. This is AOC talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene being tapped to work with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy
Doge.
as the new Doge subcommittee chair. Which, just for the audience, Doge is a riff on a type of digital coin currency, almost like a Bitcoin thing that Elon backed a long time ago. That totally did not do what he said it was going to do. So I feel like this is one grand troll. Unfortunately, it's not. So okay, go ahead.
Okay, so AOC says, this is good, actually. She barely shows up and doesn't do the reading. To borrow a phrase I saw elsewhere, it's like giving someone an unplugged controller. Honestly,
he's
I kind of feel
a good
I
spot
love
for it.
that.
I kind of feel that way about Doge in general, though, because it's not an official government agency. They're working as contractors. So, what power will they have? They'll have to get so much approval still. I don't know. I feel like it's
That's
just
also-
busy work.
Can we show a
wait.
picture on the screen of what the Doge dog looks like?
Yeah.
So that people
Yeah.
know that this is not
Good thinking.
it doesn't stand for anything. That this is a dog.
Good point.
This was
There
a
you
meme.
go.
Like,
This is it
or
right
he's
here.
cute.
There it is.
Also, I think
That's
rest
it.
in peace. I
A
think that dog
Dogecoin
did die.
isn't worth a or rest in peace to Dogecoin.
Hero.
Well,
you
Good lord.
do not use
Well-
this dog's likeness.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is too, the whole Bitcoin digital currency space is loaded with bad faith actors. On the side, I don't talk about this on the T&E stuff because it's not relevant usually, but I follow a lot of what's going on in the cryptocurrency space. And man, the amount of rug pulls and that's a term for essentially people getting in on a coin early, boosting the price really high, convincing their followers to get in. Then those people who bought early sell once the initial spike happens because their followers paid money into the coin. That kind of stuff happens all the time in these spaces. It's super unregulated.
Insider trading.
Yeah, exactly. And people lose a lot of money. A very common example of a rug pull is, this has happened with Logan Paul, for example, right? Logan Paul's this huge influencer. He'll talk about, hey, a new coin's coming out. We'll call it, whatever, Dogecoin 2.0 or whatever you want to call it. And he'll tweet that to his followers saying, get in because it's at a really good price. His followers will buy before the coin goes live or right when it goes live. What they don't know is that Logan was given X amount of those coins worth maybe 400 grand at a certain price before they got in. So he's already ahead of the game. So once people buy in and the price of the coin goes up because people are pouring money into it, Logan Paul sells his coins and then the whole thing tanks and people lose their money. That's what a rug pull is. And this happens very consistently in this creator, influencer YouTube space. And it's a big problem. And so for Elon to call this Doge, it really is a mockery because it's an unregulated, industry that hurts people all the time, which is probably a prophetic word of what's going to happen if him and Vivek and MTG get the power that they claim to be having with this side hustle of theirs.
Do you think we should be worried?
I
Is
mean,
this
of
going to
course
tank
we
the
should be
economy or
worried.
something?
Yes.
We
should be extremely worried. I'm trying to maintain hope right now with kind of what AOC is saying. That my hope is that Trump is incompetent, and by the nature of his own incompetence, he's putting incompetent people into otherwise effectual positions.
I don't know. He's
And
got the
hopefully-
keys to the.
But the thing
nukes.
is, you don't want to just put a bull in a china shop and hope it takes a nap. It's they could cause a lot of damage with the power they're being given.
The only thing I have not said this because I don't want to make people be like, what are you talking about? But honestly, my only hope, and I could be so wrong, is that because I have to imagine, and maybe this is so misinformed. I don't know. It's the holiday spirit I'm channeling.
Where are we
here.
going with this?
The most
I'm
amount of
nervous.
optimism I can stomach. maybe these people really do want to help the average American and think that their policies are going to help. And my only hope is that the policies that they're instituting are actually going to do what they say they think that they're going to do. I have very little faith in that, given what people who know more about this stuff are saying. But I have a hard time believing that Trump's in power just so he can tank the economy and like make people go unsheltered and like starve on the streets. I have to think that in his mind, he wants to help the average American. But I don't know. Listen, don't. Well, actually, you know what? For engagement, maybe you should write a comment there so we get more traction. But, I'm just saying, that's
it's like
the only thing I
April
can
made
do.
eye contact, like, I don't know.
That's the only thing I can say is maybe that's what's going on. I don't know.
Listen, I'll take it. A win is a win. What if that's the case? Great. If I'm surprised and Donald Trump pulls through and somehow saves the economy and ends all the wars and does all the things that MAGA people in my comments claim he's going to do, great.
Right.
I will be wrong. I will eat crow. I have no problem being wrong with that.
Look, if
at the end personal,
of... Yeah, I cut you off. I'm sorry, April. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Timothy.
I'm sorry. I repent.
My personal hope, though, unfortunately, I don't share the same. But I am putting my hope, similar to what King James over there said, is that just utter chaos and infighting with all these narcissistic alpha males, they just get in the way of themselves and self-sabotage. Which I know damage will still be caused. And there's a
but
reason.
We can mitigate it, and that's
right.
Quote,
but it will slow it down.
So
I'd rather
hope...
be pissing out in my tent, pissing out, than out my tent, pissing in. Who said that?
I don't remember.
LBJ? No.
Nixon, I think. Maybe that's not a good example.
I don't know. He was obsessed with.
I want to just echo April's sentiments. If at the end of 4 years, all of our neighbors have access to livable wages, and all of our neighbors have access to affordable health care, no matter who they are, what their gender or sexuality is, right? If these things happen and like people are finding it easier to own a house and interest rates are down and we see the wage gap start to close a little bit, right? And the rich aren't getting richer, I will say, you know what? Tip of the hat to Donald J. Trump. Like, I was so wrong. I also share the sentiment of you, April, where it's like, I don't think that's going to happen just based on what he said and what he's doing. Like, the tax cuts he wants to institute will really affect they'll really help out the top of the heap. The mass deportation rhetoric that he wants to do, first off, is dehumanizing. Is going to hurt a lot of immigrants who are here, but also will harm the economy because a lot of immigrants work jobs right now that sustain the economy. So I just don't know how these policies are going to do what he thinks they're going to do. Experts have said that if you raise the price of tariffs, that gets passed on to the consumer. So I'm not hopeful, but when you're like, but there's still a chance, I'm just trying to find that ray of sunshine of like, well, maybe.
We got to find hope where we can, because there's a lot of dark possible paths.
Thanks, April.
So
Thank you for holding space for me. I'm just trying to be optimistic here.
Sure.
I'm doing all I can. Pete Hegseth is going to be the Department of, what is he, the Secretary of Defense, an actual freaking crusader. I need hope somewhere.
Man, I don't. I'm not trying to like be a bummer. I'm just super like the opposite. Like the way that Trump talks like is already so dehumanizing, and we've already seen like even just like the rhetoric among the people is getting worse. Like I saw somebody on TikTok. I know that's like such a good source to use, but somebody was saying like they were at Target like just shopping for Christmas stuff, and they were like having a good time with this random stranger, and then she was like, at the very end of the conversation, the lady was like, oh, well, you're one of the good ones, so I don't think Trump's going to get rid of you. And it was like, obviously a lady of color. And she was like, I didn't even know what to say.
No.
And so like, obviously I think, I don't want this to happen, but I think hate crimes are going to go up. I think people are going to get more emboldened to be more racist and do these things. And I worry about like people like Trump, people who are that far right already don't see an entire group of Americans or non-Americans as people. I think that he absolutely would do what he could to like kill or abandon, unhoused people. I think that I think that he thinks that, liberals and people that need assistance, they haven't worked hard enough, and so they don't earn it. And I don't know. I don't I don't see good things happening.
And going along with what Jen is saying here, because I think you illustrate a really good point too. One thing I've been using, Tim, to kind of boost, in particular, my optimism in all this is that one thing I can comfortably say here in 2024 that I couldn't say in 2016 is I know the threat now. I understand it. Right. I get you. I know what you are. I've spent 8 years watching you do this. I've spent 8 years watching you with power and without power. So I know what kind of person you are top down. And I remember back in 2016, I'm sure we all do, if you had friends in progressive spaces back in that day, you were kind of going, oh, well, maybe it'll be all right. Maybe it won't be so bad. And now we know, no, it's going to be that bad. And the beauty of that is you can prepare. You can reinforce the places you need to reinforce. We know who we have to protect. That's one of the things I say a lot of the time is that, I'm a cis white man. I'm not really under a lot of threat in this regime compared to a lot of folks. So I'm going to use that power to square up. Like, they're going to have a problem with me. And I really hope that it sneaks up on them. I hope they start talking nonsense thinking I'm a safe white guy. And then you're going to find out that was never the case. So I say that you know your enemy now. That's and I don't want to make people enemies, but these ideologies, this is stuff I'm not going to stand for in my country.
Right. I mean, people's lives are at stake, so it's not like we're just disagreeing on stuffing at Thanksgiving. Like, people are going to die,
but we know who we are and we know what's important to us, and now we can fight for it because we know what he's going to target. Back in 2016, he was a complete variable. We didn't know how far he would sink. We had an idea, but now,
I was going to say, in 2016, Donald Trump sold Pride MAGA merch.
Right.
They have the have you seen the LDS for Trump, and they were selling like beer koozies and like coffee cups and stuff?
No, I did not see that.
You should look it up. It's amazing.
Wow.
Well, have you all seen, two things really quick. I just want to say that one of the things that concerns me, because you're right. I mean, listen, I know a few minutes ago I was like trying to be optimistic, and I still hope that is the
I'm not mad at you for it, man.
No. I get it, guys.
Letting yourself get down stops the mission, man.
I'm terrible. I'm horrible.
Are you having white guilt right now?
Yeah.
Let's chill out.
But I do want to point out why I don't know, April. I don't want to. I know a lot of our audience is probably exhausted, but we do have a lot of new people who listen. And if you listen to our show at all, we have given people receipt after receipt of why we're justifiably scared, right? And this one, I think, is another good example of just like where the far right is going that just put Trump in power. William Wolf, who used to be part of the Trump administration in 2016, he was a former administrative official there. He tweeted this: "Who is an American? That might be one of the hardest questions for our current generation to answer well, though it didn't used to be like that. It's also one of the most important. In order to figure out where we want to go as a nation, we need to know who we are as a people." And then he recommends a book. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. Why is this one of the hardest questions to answer? I thought an American, in his worldview, was someone who's here legally. So is it more complicated than that? So what else are we defining who an American is and is not? And this is when I think I look at this and I go, when you combine that kind of rhetoric with Trump's immigration rhetoric, it's not about the legal status of someone, right? Because we know, for example, that Elon Musk worked here illegally, technically, when he was in college for a short time, when he was like in between visas. We also know that the Haitian immigrants who were here legally were demonized by the Trump campaign, and blatant lies were spread about them, eating the dogs, eating the cats. So it's not about legal or undocumented immigrants. That's not what this is about. That's simply the Trojan horse for what's going on inside of it, which is really, you have to have a certain set of right belief, maybe look a certain way, assimilate the right way, and then we dub you an American. And this is why Trump can also say publicly and still get elected, I'm concerned about the enemy from within. Who are the enemies from within? I thought we're all Americans. I thought if we have a social security number, I thought that we are, legal Americans. But in this world, that's not how it breaks down. So that stuff truly, especially if it gets fleshed out in full, the way that people like William Wolf want it to be fleshed out, that stuff does get me concerned for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that this was happening, and I think it is a perfect example of the dehumanization that we're going to see get even more extreme.
Yeah.
Because because we know what they mean. Like, there is a real
Yeah.
definition of an American legally,
Right.
but that's not what they mean.
Mhm.
Exactly.
They're denying
Right.
personhood because they don't like you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And on
That's
the
right.
other side, I think for the next few years, we need to, because they love to do that. This is a conservative thing. They love to try and ask these, like, well, who is an American? It's a hard question and blah blah blah. And I can sit there and go, no, it ain't. I can answer you who it is right now. It's all the people you're trying to dehumanize and get rid of. I'm not going
Right.
to play this game with you. I'm not
Right.
going to sit here and act like, I have to listen to your question. No, I don't. I listened to him in 2016. I know what you
Right.
got to say. And this
Right.
time I'm not going to let you get it far enough to actually hurt people. Or
Yeah.
at least I'm going to do
Yeah.
my part to stop it as much as I can. And I think that that's something where, don't meet them on this bipartisan stuff. They know what they're saying. They know what they sound like, and they're saying it on purpose. You're smart. Viewers out there, you're smart. You know what's in your head. You know what you believe. Don't let them try and burn you with this stuff.
And that's what's so frustrating about watching mainstream media sources really sane wash not only Trump over the past couple of years, but also a lot of his nominees. I mean, I've seen several articles and headlines where I'm like, guys, you're not even covering like what's really going on here. Like, for example, when RFK was nominated to be the Secretary of Health, CNN's headline was provocative pick. Like, you mean anti-vaccine will kill a lot of people if he gets what he wants done? Pick? Like that's what that is. And you can look up what happened with RFK in what was the other country that he went into? There was a huge measles outbreak.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
Well, like a week ago.
Long story short, there's a story, this is true, that there was a country where two nurses made a mistake in how they issued a vaccine to some infants, and they both passed away. They ended up combining muscle relaxers with a vaccine, so it was actually an error on their part. But the story got spun that these vaccines were killing kids. Long story short, RFK goes over there, talks to the president or the person in charge, essentially convinces them to not vaccinate their kids for measles. And for the first time in like decades, they have a huge measles outbreak. And a lot of kids end up dying. And the president changes his mind, actually gets vaccinated on camera. And RFK plays dumb, like, no, I had nothing to do with this. Right? It's like, this is what RFK does. This is what he's been known to do. There's documentation of him being very, not just, hey guys, I'm all about higher regulations and higher standards for companies that make vaccines, which, by the way, great. I'm all about high standards and safety standards for any company that's making medicine that people ingest, for sure. That's not RFK's position. RFK has said there is no safe vaccine. It's a whole different way of thinking about the world. And so when that person, again, gets elected or gets nominated by Trump as Secretary of Health, and the CNN headline is provocative pick, it's like, that is really minimizing here some of the very out there anti-intellectual, anti-science views that RFK has. So can we please call it what it is?
And that's where I say those are the moments where I think that's a really weird way to spell incompetent, unqualified hack.
Right.
Probably,
exactly.
Controversial pick or whatever it is. Like, I'm going to use the language I know, which is he has no basis for this position. He's a complete lunatic. Like, I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Did they just let him do stuff because he's a Kennedy? Like,
That's
is he a
literally that.
politician?
If he didn't
Is he
have
some
that
guy?
name, if his name was Bill Johnson, no one would have listened to this man once. The fact
Right.
that he is out here, the only reason he gets paid attention to is because he's out here disrespecting RFK's memory.
Right. Right.
RFK was one of the few Democrats in my household that was talked about positively. If
Do
you
you
get
want to
an
show them
idea,
your painting?
I can. Yes.
You're not
You
ready for what
painting?
he's about to bring you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
I wonder if I can get you guys in full screen for this.
We got this at an
Yeah.
antique mall.
We negotiated.
You're not ready.
We got this argued down from like $40 to $20. Ha
Let's see what I
ha!
can do here. Hold on.
Look
Wait.
at that. That was
I
in
want this
somebody's grandma house.
Let
Tilt
me
it
get this in
down.
full screen.
Yeah.
Hold on. Don't move. There you go.
Ha ha!
Oh
Hey,
my
look over
God.
my desk when I write our episodes.
Oh,
I don't
nice.
have any sort of feelings about that. I don't know enough about the Kennedys to endorse or condone.
That is so funny.
That's amazing.
I was raised by not even boomers. I was raised by silent gen folks. So
I want to
Kirk
give just
Cameron on my wall.
one more brief example of the sane washing of Trump's picks, and we can move on to the main story that we're going to get into about Daystar and stuff. But
This is the main story.
there's a lot of main
Well,
stories.
wait
This
till
is the
you hear the
problem.
Daystar story.
This is the problem with the recap is there's so much to talk about. So Russ Vought, who we've talked about before, Russell Vought, he is the key architect behind Project 2025. That is true. And you see all these headlines here. Trump taps Project 2025 architect. Who is Russell Vought? Project 2025 co-author, etc. What they're not saying, though, is that Russ is a raging Christian nationalist who believes that God has given him a calling to take over America and to rule it with his Christian nationalist friends. Like, it's not just the fact that he's behind Project 2025, which of course is terrifying. It's what their ideology and their theology is. And it's so rarely talked about by mainstream sources. The New York Times isn't talking about it. MSNBC doesn't talk about it enough. CNN doesn't talk about it enough, if at all. If we're not talking about the militant religious fundamentalist zealotry that drives these people's ideology, you're going to miss why Project 2025 exists in the first place. You're going to miss why Trump got elected in the first place. Because although, yes, Trump gained a lot of ground in a lot of different groups of people, it was white Christian Protestants, again, who carried him to victory. And you're not going to understand what's going on if you don't understand the theology that animates it. So it's been very frustrating. In April and I've covered this many times on the show with other guests. It's so frustrating over the past 4 to 5 years now, watching mainstream media really not talk about Christian nationalism and just the level of fundamentalism that drives this movement. And I'm afraid if we're not able to unpack that for the average American, they have no clue what they're actually voting for.
I have theories on why they won't talk about Christian nationalism, because they're a very influential voting bloc, for one. And unless you are inside or come from that world or have done a lot of research and understand the nuances of Christian nationalism, people could take it as if they are painting all of white evangelicalism with that brush, and they don't want to come across anti-Christian. And to be fair, a lot of right-wing commentators who are Christian nationalists but do not claim the title, think they're just being good Christians. They would, like, even for me, like, I get told too, like, when I call it Christian nationalism, like, oh, you hate God, you're anti-Christian. They're afraid to come across anti-Christian because so many people don't understand the differences between being a Christian nationalist and just following the teachings of Jesus, which are differences, but they're very nuanced because of how deeply rooted Christian nationalism is in just the American church as a whole. I agree with you that they should be talking about it, but that is my theory as to why they are leaving that part out of the conversation.
And that would make sense too, because I think that kind of goes back to what I'm saying too, is use those moments to kind of highlight that wherever you can and be like, even if you're saying I'm evangelical but I'm not a Christian nationalist, well, your church is moving it forward. So your church is moving the Christian nationalist movement forward. You may not be part of it, but you're putting your time, effort, and resources into that movement. So what am I supposed to think?
Yeah. I mean, also the reality is white evangelicalism is Christian nationalists, right? 8 out of 10 voted for Trump. 65% of white evangelicals polled adhere to some kind of Christian nationalist identity on paper. So, yeah, but I agree, April. I totally get what you're saying. Of course, I understand it. But to me, at this point, like, we have nothing left to lose. Like the damage is done. Trump just got elected for another 4 years. And it's time to start calling this stuff what it is. And also it's time to start elevating other Christian voices that have been talking about this stuff for a long time and getting them in front of mainstream people. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the new left-wing media conglomerate called Chorus Media. We Are Chorus. Brian Tyler Cohen's behind it. I Am Politics Girl's behind it. And I'm thrilled. I hope to God that they get some more progressive Christian voices on that network, because you need Christians who help make the sausage at one point, help to unpack the religious side of this. Right. I'm not asking Brian to talk about Christian nationalism. I'm saying get someone who knows about Christian nationalism on the network to be that voice, because you need people like me, April, you guys, and many other voices that we work with to help you understand the ideology that drives the right-wing drift that we're seeing. But anyway.
Yeah.
And likewise, I've been saying this to people too. If you've got thoughts, huh? Oh, you heading out?
I got thoughts.
Good. Because I'm about to monologue. No, I do this.
I meant THOTS.
Well, 6 1 half dozen the other. Anyway, what I was gonna.
What?
Now
Did it leave you?
My point.
Oh no! I was so excited.
I lost my point. That was that ADHD kicking in for me.
No, James, I was so ready to be serenaded.
I had a whole point. It was great, and then I lost it. I swear.
Well, I'm sure it will come back.
One of these days.
Okay. Well, where did Jen go?
She is going to the restroom, I think.
Okay. Well, when she comes back, we'll hop into the Daystar thing, because this is going to be a real doozy to hop into. And honestly, it broke. I think it broke. April, did it break right before we recorded last week's episode? Like right around that time?
Yeah, it was after we recorded. Yes.
That's when like it really broke. Well, I got wind of this because I do have an inside source who is a friend of mine who is in that world still. And we talk often. And he said, hey, dude, something big is coming out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Really big.
Again. A lot of stuff's been coming out of Dallas.
Again. And I was like, really?
It's bigger in Texas.
And then 2 days later, this Daystar story breaks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he is correct. So we need to unpack it. And man, there's just so many layers here for sure. But
it's always weird too. I mean, I don't like when these types of stories, and we will get into the details in just a second, happen, but it's extra, I don't know what the word is, just unsettling when you know the people, because
Yes.
like my dad was on Daystar because we were from Dallas. Like I've met Joni and Marcus many times growing
That's
up as a
crazy.
kid. Like I know them, so it's just weird.
So, okay. So Jen and James, wow, sorry. You don't know much about this story at all. And so I'm going to try and kind of help you. I'm going to try and break it down in a succinct way that we can kind of unpack it, because this story has a lot of like layers to it, and we don't have time to go through all of them. I want to give you the gist. Okay. So the bottom line is that this organization called Daystar, they're pretty much, I mean, April, it's safe to say they're the biggest like Christian broadcasting conglomerate, I think, in the world.
I don't know if they're the biggest. I don't know if CBN is bigger,
they claim
but
to reach
they
like 6 billion people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, those people also like to pad numbers.
That's true.
Generally speaking, just coming from that world. But I will say they are very big. They're international ministry. They have their own TV channel. They have multiple Christian shows, and it's very much run by the family. By Joni and Marcus Lamb started Daystar. Marcus passed away in 2021 from COVID. They are also notoriously anti-COVID vaccine people, and we're pushing, all of the alternative treatments that were proven to not be helpful.
Right.
And even after Marcus passed, they just doubled down and said, well, it didn't work for Marcus, but we still believe it works. Right. And literally learned no lessons.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a pretty big operation. I mean, they do. I think they said up to $100 million, like, is what they do, as far as like revenue goes. Yeah. They're huge. They have over 100 like subsidiary channels. They broadcast all over the world, and there's a pretty big story happening, because I'm gonna pull this up here. This is from the Roy's report. Julie Roy's. Former Daystar executive and wife accuse Joni Lamb, that's the current president, of covering up their daughter's sexual abuse. So just trigger warning, people, this story does include details of sexual abuse. And so I'm going to kind of give you guys the summary, because I have that loaded up here. I did some work to kind of break it down. So here's the story. Jonathan and Susie Lamb, they are former insiders, network people at Daystar Television Network, have accused Joni Lamb, so that's Jonathan's mother, the president of Daystar, of serious misconduct. The situation involves two main issues: allegations of mishandling a sexual abuse case and claims of spiritual abuse and bullying. So the sexual abuse allegations are as followed. The Lambs, that's Jonathan and Susie Lamb, allege that their young daughter was sexually abused by a male relative in 2020. They claim that Joni Lamb, instead of supporting them and seeking justice, obstructed their attempts to report the abuse to CPS. Jonathan alleges that after they took action, he faced retaliation at work, including a demotion and eventual firing from his position as vice president at Daystar. The Lambs accused Joni of prioritizing the reputation of Daystar over her granddaughter's well-being, leading them to file a lawsuit against her. So that's the essay. And a little more detail on that. Essentially, I don't want to get too graphic because, this is serious stuff, but essentially, Jonathan and Susie, they noticed that their daughter was behaving strange around a certain family member, in like their extended family. And then Jonathan claims that he caught that family member with his daughter while she was totally undressed in like their upstairs bedroom. And when they confronted him about it, and then it essentially brought Joni, that's Jonathan's mother, into it, Joni and her then husband Marcus really downplayed it, tried to make it seem like it was no big deal. It wasn't a big issue. At one point, blamed the 5-year-old for being undressed. Like the report in the Julia Roy's like article is really damning shit. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what happened there. And then we have the other side of spiritual abuse and gaslighting allegations. So in a separate but related issue, Jonathan and Susie have accused Joni Lamb and Pastor Jimmy Evans of exo marriage. Now, Jimmy Evans is one of the major pastors out there. He has a huge network. He's worth a lot of money. He runs the exo marriage like brand. He used to do it with Mark Driscoll, by the way, back in the day. So he's another big name in like this, I don't know, April, is it safe to say almost like a Pentecostal adjacent kind of space where they're heavy on prophecy and speaking in tongues and healing, but they're not, but they're measured enough to have like a broad appeal. Is that fair?
Yes. But they really, since COVID, they've teetered on more conspiracy theories. Because I remember a couple years ago, they played on their channel 2,000 Mules.
Oh my God.
They're also big Trump people.
You mean the documentary that was actually pulled by the distributor for having so much false information on it? That movie?
Yes. So they had pushed that the election was stolen narrative by playing that movie.
Got it. So, after Joni remarried Dr. Doug Weiss, we'll play a clip from him in a minute, following her late husband's passing, that's Marcus, who wouldn't take the vaccine, the Lambs, meaning Jonathan and Susie, and other family members expressed concern, believing the marriage didn't align with biblical divorce standards because Doug Weiss divorced his wife, I think 2 months after Marcus passed away, and then Joni and him got married. So they look kind of sus, which makes a lot of sense because, again, to these guys, they want to hold to this biblical idea of divorce, which is you don't divorce for any reason, essentially. So Joni and Evans allegedly pressured the Lambs to publicly support her new marriage. So essentially what happened was a message came in, and this is when Jonathan and Susie were both on the air, and they refused to read the message, praising Joni and Doug's new marriage. Joni brings in Jimmy Evans, and in a recorded meeting, and we have the audio of this, Evans claimed that Joni was, quote, the voice of God to Jonathan regarding Daystar leadership, implying that disobedience to her was disobedience to God, which, of course, the Lambs describe as bullying and spiritual abuse. So that is the broad story. And essentially, Joni has taken the posture of, these are all lies, none of this happened. It's all just to defame me. And Jonathan and Susie Lamb, who are pictured here on the left, whose daughter was allegedly SA'd by a family member, which, by the way, I have a name, but I'm not going to say because we don't have concrete evidence, or I don't have the details yet, so I don't want to make a mistake, but it's someone in their extended family. It's an in-law. Essentially they're saying, no, we didn't want any of this. We tried to handle this as best as we could, and we've been gaslit and spiritually manipulated and abused the entire way. So that is the story of what's happening at Daystar right now.
Well, I mean, I have thoughts if nobody else does.
Go ahead.
I think this is a very clear expression of a symptom of the evangelical right-wing drift we've been seeing, which is a kind of self-infallibility, that the Christians are good people no matter what they do, and the non-Christians are bad people no matter what they do.
That's right.
And I think that this is the type of thing we're going to see. I mean, of course, obviously she's going to discredit it as lies, although I'm sorry, but clergy abuse is something we have so much evidence for that I tend to kind of just agree with it outright whenever I hear it, because we know it happens constantly. It is such an abused position.
Yep.
And I think that this is just going to become worse and worse and worse over time, because I think it's become about the Christian identity as opposed to moral action. I mean, that may be obvious to a lot of your viewers, but coming from the outside, it is surprising to see that, it really is just, if you ascribe yourself as a Christian, they're going to forgive whatever you do. They're going to try to make excuses for you. They're going to try and defend that from what they see as the outside world, even in situations of horrible abuse where the outside world and outside authorities aren't the enemy.
Yeah.
And so I it's tragic, but it's a story we hear all too often, and I think it's only going to get worse.
100%. Should I play the audio of Jimmy Evans telling Jonathan, again, whose daughter was allegedly SA'd, about how his mother is the voice of God to him? I have the audio of that. I'll play it.
Yes,
real quick.
I will
would
say
be
Jonathan
very
and Susie
intrigued.
have a lot of private recordings that basically
allowed to
back
have
up their
this?
claims.
Are you going to get in trouble?
No, this is public. This was posted by Julie Royce. There's a little bit of music behind it. I couldn't trim it out. But here's the audio. Here you go. This is Jimmy Evans.
And submission means she's the voice of God to you. And I said,
I'm sorry, can you clarify? She said she's the voice of God to me?
she's the voice of God
So
to you.
God's voice is
So I have to hear, I can't hear from God, I have to hear from her?
Outside of Daystar. What she says is God in Daystar. This is the voice of God in Daystar.
So what accountability does she have if she's off?
Well, she has
Him.
a husband. She has a board.
I'm on the board.
Yeah. But you're not, individually, you're not her accountability. Individually, you're her employee.
There you go. There you go.
Oh my god!
I wonder how Christ would take words like that. The actual
it's-
Jesus Christ. You're an employee. You don't hold accountability. Like,
I mean, I'm
yeah.
good for him for speaking up in that clip. Like,
I feel like
for
Jesus
sure.
is about to start sliding those robe sleeves up, and he's going to start a fist fight. Like that.
And
Ain't
you know what's interesting, though? Jimmy says the quiet part out loud that a lot of us have talked about, where these pastors, they insinuate that they are the voice of God to their parishioners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is Jimmy just saying it bluntly to Jonathan, saying, no. Your mom is the voice of God to you at Daystar. Think about the power that language insinuates. That Joni speaks with the authority of the creator of the universe, the creator who spoke all existence into being in the Christian tradition anyway. And she is that voice to you. Talk about blatant spiritual gaslighting and abuse from another spiritual leader. It's
Also,
unbelievable.
they brought Jimmy Evans in as a quote unquote mediator.
Right.
And he's friends with Joni. He has been on Daystar many times. There are so many like wild details to this story that, I mean, if you want all the details, Julie Royce has written a few articles about it. I think it's making bigger news now as well. Jonathan and Susie are talking publicly about this. They've made some videos from undisclosed locations from threats, but like Daystar allegedly was like putting trackers on their car and intimidating them. And in the midst of all of the abuse allegations and them wanting, Joni and Marcus, because this started before Marcus passed away,
Right.
in 2020. In the midst of all of that, at some point, I guess more recently, they asked everyone at Daystar to sign NDAs, and that they couldn't talk about what was going on anywhere. And Jonathan and Susie, or at least Jonathan, refused to sign the NDA and was given an ultimatum, like, you sign this or you lose your position.
Yep.
And then the timeline's confusing, but at some point they fired him from being vice president and moved him to be over the Daystar Cafe.
Yeah. According to the article,
I was just going to highlight to your audience, please remember NDAs do not cover illegal activity. If you ever sign one, it does not cover illegal activity. You cannot NDA your way out of being reported for something illegal.
Good.
I was going to ask you if, like, on paper or legally, is there, like, what is the differences between how, like, a organization is allowed to operate if they're just like a regular employer, or they're just a regular business, versus being a ministry? Because it sounds like it's like the unholy union of both here. So she's your boss, but she's literally speaking for God.
Daystar, though, is also not just a ministry. They are actually legally listed as a church. So they have extra privacy with their
They don't
financial
have to disclose their
institutions
finances
and
or
everything.
anything.
Yeah,
Right,
they
don't
have to disclose anything. They have complete freedom in terms of discriminatory hiring practices, so they can completely build up their stable of yes men.
But
and no
also,
one can stop
They don't
them.
have to pay you properly. They don't
have to follow wage law. They don't have to follow labor protections.
By the way,
churches get away with anything.
Joni, because she technically is running a church would be a mandated reporter in the state of Texas. So when she was when Jonathan, again, that's his mom. So when Jonathan went to his mom, so by the way, they use the anonymous name Pete to describe the alleged perpetrator. So I'm going to say Pete from now on, referring to the person who's accused of essaying the 5-year-old. But when Jonathan went to his mom, Joni, and said, "Hey, someone in our family, Pete, abused my 5-year-old," Joni said, "Let's keep it in-house. Bring the girl to me." This is according to the Reuters Report article. Said, "Don't go to the police. Go to me." After the girl talked to Joni, the girl locked up like a lockbox and never talked about it again. So we don't know.
5-year-old girl.
The 5-year-old. Okay. And according to the article, this is when Marcus was still alive. Marcus and Joni justified, remember, the story is that Jonathan found Pete with his daughter upstairs when his daughter was undressed and lost it on him, rightfully so. I would have beat this guy to a pulp. I mean, all of my ethic about nonviolence goes out the window when it comes to kids in my mind, for me. But Marcus and Joni justified Pete's presence in the girl's room by saying Pete loved her and simply wanted to hang out with her, according to Susie. This is Jonathan's wife. Susie added that when she strongly objected, saying that didn't explain why Pete was in the room with her naked daughter. I'm reading from the article here. Joni blamed the couple's daughter, saying she was the one who took her clothes off. At this, Susie began screaming at her mother-in-law, but Joni was adamant and reiterated her claims several times over the next 24 hours. At one point, Marcus and Joni gathered Jonathan and Susie with Pete and his wife in Marcus and Joni's bedroom and insisted that they repent to each other and pray, according to Susie.
And at one point, I think Joni said that God told her that Pete was innocent.
Yes,
and that they should just drop it.
Yes, that's right. That's absolutely correct, according to the article. Yeah. So, like, this is another. And look, we all know the data here. Okay, we all know that. That it is so incredibly rare, especially for young children, to make up abuse allegations. There is no incentive for Jonathan and his wife Susie to bring this up. And make up these alleged claims to Joni and Marcus and the family. There's no incentive for them to do any of this. None. Zero. Unless it actually happened. And for Joni and Marcus, who's now passed away, and the family, they are seen as the ones who are dividing the family apart. Right? They're the problem here, because don't worry, guys. God gave Joni a word. Pete is innocent. And this is the result of these really high control religious spaces where people take the mantle of God and then have that kind of authority in other people's lives. Like, it's wild that we're once again here in this situation, and still evangelicalism is not going to do a deep dive and think about the systems that they've created that give room for stuff like this to happen to 5-year-olds. It's unbelievable.
And this is her granddaughter?
Her granddaughter.
Yeah. And she doesn't, like, this is evil. Like, how could you do this? And I know she's just trying to protect her ass. Clearly, she doesn't want to get in trouble legally because she didn't report it. Like, and it's also like as a moral thing, like, you're a reprehensible, like, evil person to do this. Like, I can't believe this.
I also think these people, like Joni in particular, though, are so damn deluded that I think she buys her own BS. I think she really thinks she's talking to God. I think she really she's wrong. She's like, I don't know what she's talking to, but the dark parts inside of her brain. But regardless, I think she believes her own nonsense, and that's why they have such an easy time selling these lies, is because 100%. They believe them. And she may not even, and I'm not saying this to justify, she may not realize what she's doing. That's scarier, because that means that this has become who they are. And that's harder to fight.
I hope everybody gets sued into oblivion.
Me too. Honestly, I learned about Daystar from you all as a thing about 20 minutes ago, and I'm already hoping it collapses.
They do $100 million a year annually, according to Jonathan, who was the former president of Daystar. So they're a huge organization.
Yeah, and there's other things not that are outside of the abuse stuff that is also scandalous that has come out in the midst of all of this. Jonathan, when he became vice president, started seeing some financial discrepancies. And Joni right now and Daystar, they're painting this whole thing as Jonathan is just bitter that he didn't become president, and that basically it started when Joni married Doug. And Doug is an interesting character.
Yes, he is,
in all
April.
Of this, because, so timeline, we didn't talk about this, but Marcus dies in 2021, right? And it was around 2 or 3 months later, Doug leaves his wife of 30 years. Like leaves him. And so that's like one of Jonathan's complaints, and what kind of started the tension, or more tension, was that they didn't believe he got divorced in a biblical way.
Right.
And Joni, I literally, there's a charisma article that Joni wrote. That's like the headline's like how God miraculously brought me and Doug together.
Yes. I think I actually have it here. There it is, right there. Charisma News. How God miraculously led Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss. This is August 12th, 2024.
Is there a reason why, like strategically, why would she need to be married? Is it because like you're not taken seriously unless you're married? But like at the power level she's at, it really wouldn't matter, right? Like there's got to be something behind the scenes with like the money or like the power, because it's just like
I think it's kind of like Gwen. I think it's kind of like Gwen Shamblin too. They like having a subservient boy toy.
Yeah.
And I mean that wholeheartedly. They like being the nuclear married couple, but they're not giving up the power. So they pick these men very particularly to, advance their pre-existing mission.
There was also, and I've not verified this, but there's a lady on Twitter named Candy Chand. If you go to her Twitter X account, she has a very, very long, similar, it corroborates a lot of what Julie Royce has reported too, but it's based on a conversation she's had directly with Susie. And she claims that Jonathan sounded alarms initially too when he saw a $100,000 bill to the ministry for Joni and Doug's 1-week honeymoon.
Mm-hmm. I'm not surprised. Not surprised at
all.
$15,000. Where did they go?
About $15,000 a day by my rough mental math.
I don't know. I mean, allegedly. I haven't seen the paper myself, but
yeah. Okay. So here's another thing. Wrong screen. Here we go. Daystar TV flew executives to Trump victory party on private jet, raising questions about IRS compliance. Like, are we really surprised by this? Like, they are spending, according to, again, this is the Julie Royce report, an article, November 9th, 2024. Christian Television Network Daystar TV spent an estimated $38,000 this week to fly executives to Donald Trump's victory party on Daystar's private jet, raising questions about the ministry's compliance with applicable laws. I mean, it's just like, are we really surprised that maybe they spent $100,000 on a amazing 1-week honeymoon? No, I'm not surprised at all. Not one bit. Don't forget, because Joni, she speaks on behalf of God to people, right? I mean, Jimmy Evans, another pastor, gave her that moniker to her. Like, she's the voice of God to you. And the voice of God deserves to be pampered, friends. Like, it's crazy.
I think this is an area we're going to see being abused more and more, because this is an area where Trump really is going to open things up for the mega church type folks, is this blurring of the nonprofit and religious tax code lines.
100%.
That's already bad. He's going to make it so much friendlier for them to abuse the crap out of it.
Many of these people want to eradicate the Johnson Amendment for that exact reason, right? Which the Johnson Amendment is what says you cannot, as a nonprofit, no matter who you are, endorse any particular political candidate. So you can say, you can make commentary, but you can't say from the pulpit, for example, we as a church endorse President Trump or President Biden.
Or you could just pay your taxes, and then you could make your endorsement all you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could just pay your taxes, churches, and then you can endorse whoever you want.
All right, April,
well, there's ways to endorse without endorsing, and that's how they do it.
I'm giving them 2 ways to do it. You can either give it up, you can give up your stupid endorsements, or you can do the thing you have to do to earn them.
Yeah. I will say
I'm very opinionated on this.
They find ways to endorse without endorsing, and a lot of them straight up endorse, and the IRS does nothing about it.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the IRS. I mean, conservatives go far out of their way to keep the IRS understaffed and toothless for a reason.
Exactly.
Not because they care about you, but because they don't like getting Al Capone.
As somebody who has had to been on the phone with the IRS for many hours this past summer,
because I'm trying to live a life. It is
not something I would wish on anyone.
Legal, patriotic, tax-paying citizenship. That's my punishment, is having to deal with them.
Fair. So back to Doug. He's an interesting character.
Bring me back to that. Sorry.
Go ahead, April.
So
Do it.
Billy Roy calls him a sex therapist. I don't know if he uses that term, but he's a counselor and he does talk about sex quite a bit. He has said on Christian TV that Jesus died so Christians could have great sex.
That's where that quote's from. Okay.
I love it.
And then this is another clip. I'm not sure how old this clip is.
Get ready.
Just
play. Yeah. I want their honest reaction here. Here we go.
Have a cursed penis, or you can have a blessed penis.
You stay right there.
I'm in for blessed penis, amen? If you're gonna have a penis, you might as well have a blessed one, amen? All right, so I want to tell you how to walk under sexual authority. Okay, here it is. Let's go back to let's go to the book of Romans for a moment. I'm going to give you the three owners of your penises. Three owners of your penis. So if you're writing, that's what it would be. Three owners. Okay. Sorry, my Bible wants to go the wrong direction.
This is me trying to
Okay, Romans. There we go. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your penises as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Now, I know I took a little liberty with the words bodies. How many of your penises connected to your body? Okay, good. If you have problems with that, see a doctor. Okay, so, but the first owner of your penis is God.
There you go. The first owner of your penis.
And you can have
it's better than penis homes.
That's
slightly better than penis homes.
As a bisexual man, that didn't land the way he thought it would for me.
Maybe
but,
that much better.
He thought he ate.
Yeah.
I was like, I enjoyed that thought the way he said it, but not the way he meant it.
And this is the guy that's with
married
Joni
to
now?
Joni.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure about you guys, but I for those of us who have penises, I certainly want a blessed penis.
Do you want to know? Here's another, I don't know if fun's the right word, but a little fact in this story. At one point, so Jonathan and Susie, I think they had their own show on Daystar, and they were on air a lot. And at one point, they were given like a card that they had to read that was from a viewer that was basically praising Doug. And they saw it like right before they went on air, and they said, we're not reading that. That's going to sound like a public endorsement of your marriage and Doug, and we don't agree with it.
Right.
And so literally, I think after that, they were no longer on the air. Like they were still employed and they were still on the board and all that stuff, but they took them off the air and claimed that they were just on sabbatical.
And that leaked audio I played of Jimmy Evans was in response to that. It was about them not saying that thing. Joni got so mad, she brought in Jimmy Evans, who then said, Joni is the voice of God to you. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I probably glossed over it, trying to get everything out in 1 minute. But that's exactly right. So like the narcissism, like the abuse, the spiritual abuse, and I would argue most importantly, the cover-up of alleged SA of a 5-year-old, it is egregious. And this is an organization that is a Christian organization that reaches billions of people with the quote-unquote gospel of Jesus that does $100 million annually in revenue. And this is what's behind it. I mean, we're here again, right, April? We covered Robert Morrison this year. We've covered so many stories, high-profile ones. And for every high-profile one we cover, there are dozens that go largely underreported, right? Yeah. So it is such a pattern over and over again of these people. And it's the same playbook. Someone comes out and says, hey, I was SA'd by someone. And the people in power do everything they can to minimize it. They use spiritual language to minimize it. They claim to be the voice of God, that God said this person's innocent. We can't go to the police. It's just like when John MacArthur, a couple of years ago, same thing with John Gray and his wife, where he's like, don't go to the police, we'll handle it internally. It's a consistent pattern of we don't go to the authorities because we, as the spiritual authorities in your life, are the most important authority that you can have. It is the ultimate narcissistic attitude, and it hurts so many people.
Well, because you're also taught that you ultimately are under authority of God.
Right.
Even above the government. It's like we're literally trained from childhood, if you grow up in this world, that one day the government's going to persecute Christians and it is your job to basically break the law. because God's law is above the law of the land always. So there's always this, and they're like, well, secular world, they don't understand because they're not of God. And so there's this manipulation always there. And you're taught like, well, we're of God. They're not of God. So you listen to us. You don't need to listen to that the secular police or the secular FBI or whatever the issue, because they're not of God. But sometimes they'll change when it's Donald Trump being president. Then suddenly they're talking about Romans 13 again, and that all authority is established by God, and you must submit to the government authority. But you just don't hear that verse when a Democrat is president. So it's very wishy-washy on when they decide to implement that belief.
April, I forgot something.
What'd you forget?
We forgot this board meeting audio that also leaked.
Oh man.
Yeah.
How much awful audio do we have?
This just reinforces what happens in these kinds of places. So this is a leaked audio of Jonathan, that's Joni's son, who alleged that his daughter was being essayed, being confronted by a board member to either sign an NDA or to essentially be demoted, or was it demoted or fired? So listen to the language in this clip and listen to how sneaky they are. And props again to Jonathan for sticking to his guns. Check this out.
At your mother's request, we called you back in here so John could talk to you. And we'd give you 24 hours from the time we signed this. That's roughly 2:30 to 3 o'clock tomorrow. If you can sign that, come back in to Arnold's office, sign the piece of paper, okay? Read it, do you comfortable with it, and then sign the piece of paper tomorrow. You have until basically, I say 3 o'clock. That's 24 hours from the time that we sign it. If you do not do that, then you are removing yourself from the board and removing yourself from your vice president position, and you are then an employee. You're still an employee. That's where we are. Now, technically, we had to pass a motion to do that because technically you were gone. You had already removed yourself from the board.
You dismissed me.
Well, because you did not do it. Technically, you removed yourself from the board.
I didn't remove myself.
You removed
you
yourself
dismissed
from
me.
vice president. At her request, we passed a motion to give you 24 hours to reconsider. Before you get your letter from Daystar telling you that's what the situation is. Now, you with me? You understand?
I understand.
So until 3 o'clock tomorrow, you have to go home, pray, talk, do whatever you want to, then come back into Arnold's office and read that until you're comfortable to sign it or not sign it.
Okay.
And if you sign it, then we are bound, you're bound by it just like the rest of us. If you don't sign it, you have removed yourself from the board and removed yourself from the officer of Daystar.
I wouldn't have removed myself. That would be her decision.
That's the effect of not signing.
That's the effect of you not signing it. You're doing it.
What he said is this board didn't remove you. Your decision not to sign this is what's going to remove you.
I have something to say.
There you go.
I have something to say about this. Okay, I don't have a religious background, but I do have a background in human resources. And I want to tell every one of your viewers right now, what you just saw is an employer's favorite trick. Employers don't lie, they reclassify. That's what they do. Do not let them do that. If they ever call you in and say, oh, well, technically, if you do this, that, and then you're no, I'm not. What Jonathan did there is, and I just want to say it as someone who I consider myself an employee rights advocate. If you go into a meeting like that and they try to tell you what you're technically doing or officially doing, you're not stupid. Tell them exactly what they're doing. No, you're firing me. And that's how we're going to treat it.
Right.
If you're firing me, you're firing me.
Right.
And you're going to have
so manipulative to put that on the other person. Like, you're doing this. Like, no,
Exactly.
no, they're not. Yeah.
And it's a classic secular employer trick that, because they're usually bound to those laws and have been for a lot longer than these churches, they figured out how to absolve themselves of legal liability for wrongful terminations.
Notice how they had the lawyer there. I didn't even know he was in the room until...
Second of all, this further proves my point that all pastors should wear body cams. And
All, yeah.
If y'all need a pick-me-up in your head, I want y'all to think about that Mr. Tom Callender when he goes to meet Christ. Because if his beliefs are true, he's going to meet Christ one day, and I am real. It is really exciting to me to think about him talking to Christ about that conversation he just had.
Okay, breaking news.
He's not even going to make it to the
April's
meet and
always
greet.
on it.
I want to talk
is
to that man. That's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
This is a brand new tweet from
I
Julie
just
Roy
saw it.
15 minutes ago.
Ooh, okay.
Exclusive
Good Lord.
audio. Guys, you gotta keep on it. We try and bring our audience cutting edge news.
I appreciate
Exclusive
it. Hey,
audio.
It's
that's what happens.
developing while I'm in the chair.
You're
Hey, we
so
take
welcome.
a month and a half to make one episode, so I can't relate.
Props to you. Exclusive audio from a private meeting with Jimmy Evans, Joni Lamb, Jonathan Lamb, and Susie Lamb. Eyeball emoji. What's really going on behind the scenes? Let's unpack it. Okay, so this is a 1.5 minute clip here. Let's play. I have not heard this. Have you, April?
No, I just saw
Okay.
it come through and I said, let's just play it.
Here we go.
See, now you're in trouble with her.
Why are you in trouble?
I'm not-
You're making me some bad guy.
I'm
I
not
said
in trouble
you
with her.
can
I'm
be.
just.
said
Just
no,
speak
we
your
don't
mind.
say
I'm
You are
telling.
bad, Susie. You've got him by the balls, and you know it. And
Wow,
that's
babe.
exactly what
Babe, they're
you
really
do.
scary. They're saying horrible
No,
things.
no. That's not
I've
the
got
case.
you by the
at all.
balls.
And other people
Who
see it. You
talks
see it
like
in your
this?
eyes right now, and you look at him like
Who
you gave him a
talks?
look.
I gave him a look of pity. Like I'm trying to. You're cornering him. This is so evil. What is happening?
No, what's evil
And
is
you're
you.
telling me that I've
What's
got him
evil
by the
is you and the
balls.
spirit
So-
that's driving you, and the things you've done, the things you
Horrible.
said, the things you've written, the people that you've talked to, the people who've told me things you said that are disgusting.
Like what?
That is what evil.
Like what?
You know, Susie.
What? I don't.
You
Tell me.
know. Oh, please, don't even try it.
What are
okay?
this?
Just
What are?
don't.
Can you tell me what these things are?
No, I'm not, because you know what they are.
I have
I
no
don't.
idea.
Jimmy, you were there in the meeting with the children. You heard what all she said. You
Yeah.
told me what
Tell
she
me
said.
some of the things.
We don't.
Well,
Why do we have to repeat what you said? You know what you said.
Susie, the thing is,
Everything
the
I said
whole-
in good
the
conscience.
whole
So I don't know
conversation-
what's disgusting.
The whole conversation gets down to you're not submitted. Now you've admitted it, so I'm good with you. You've admitted you won't. Okay, now it's down to you, and you won't. You always come back to the qualification of the personal conviction, and so I said, if you're on TV tomorrow, if you're on ministry now, and you were asked
I can't
to
even
read,
look at you.
See, and that's the enemy right there. I can't even
That's
look.
not.
at you.
Because
Look at
now
each
it's
other.
the
Yes, it
balls.
is. Yes, it
Because
is.
they say I got you by the balls. It's so crazy.
But the point being, whatever she says moving forward is God. Is okay, God, she's my boss. Whatever you say, I'll do.
Wow.
This is crazy.
Okay, so for the podcast only audience there who couldn't see the graphic that was switching between who was talking, essentially you had Susie Lamb, which is Jonathan's wife, and then Joni saying that Susie has Jonathan by the balls. I mean, that was who was talking to who. That audio, I mean, April, it's almost too on the nose. It's like if we were writing some drama of like a church gone awry or some ministry gone awry, that would be the dialogue that we would write because it's so clear.
Yeah.
This person's God to you. I don't have to tell you what you said. That's the spirit of the enemy. It's the stuff that we talk about all the time, enshrined into a 1.5 minute long clip.
Oh my gosh, it's so infuriating because we talk about spiritual manipulation that happens in churches all the time, but this is like textbook example.
Textbook.
Like and it's real. That's the crazy part. Like usually when we talk about it, it's a little more subtle. It's said in more subtle, sneaky ways, but this is just on the nose.
I don't know when, but we do have. So Julie Roy has just dropped in the whole audio recording of the meeting. It's an 1.5 hours long. We're not going to watch it today, obviously, but at some point, April, we should go through this because I bet there's all kinds of shit in here. Can I just say, I feel so bad for these two, for Jonathan and Susie Lamb, because they are people, and they released a statement about 3.5 minutes long a couple days ago talking about this, and they're still very much Christian. They're using Christian language, and I can tell that in their mind they're like, I don't get it. We're just doing what we were taught to do. We want to have truth and integrity and accountability, and we still believe that God is using us in this season of life. I mean, it's very Christianese. I just feel so bad for them because they're finding out in maybe one of the most horrific ways possible, because their daughter claims and has good evidence that she was SA'd by a family member. They're finding out what happens when you share the same beliefs but don't realize you don't have the same values underneath of it, right? And it is like, I just really feel for them. I really do. I just feel so terrible that they're going through this.
It's very parallel to just anyone who deconstructs from the church.
Yeah.
Like most people that I've talked to, and I know it's not everybody, but most people that I know and have talked to about it, you deconstruct because you actually want to follow Jesus and you actually want to love your neighbor and you actually want to do the things that we were taught. And then suddenly you're seeing very clear and obvious hypocrisy or just straight up, like abuse and the cover up of that. And you realize that's not okay. I was going to read a quote that was in that tweet I had mentioned earlier, where at some point Susie in one of these meetings, I don't know if it was one of that, like that one that was there, but she had said, just to try to get people to come back to like reality, like why are we all here? At one point she says something, I can't find it because this is a super long tweet. Here it is. She said, Jesus died for people, not for $1 billion. And the response she got in the room was laughter. Like at a certain point, it's hard for me to believe that they have to know they're not actually following Jesus, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think that they believe Jesus. I think she's deluded herself into believing that Jesus bestowed this fortune upon her.
Yeah,
and everything she does to defend it, whether it would be considered objectively ethical or not, doesn't matter because Jesus already signed off on it.
Yeah. Before we get into the next clip, something that I noticed about that clip in particular, it seems like they specifically brought Joni in to be the one that yells at Susie.
The brow,
like woman to woman, because the stuff she was saying was less business and you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Like with the man, it was like, you're manipulative, you're doing this, you're a bad, traits that women in the church are not supposed to have. And I found that to be very interesting because it's like, you did that on purpose.
Right.
It's also just typical of the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship too, where it's like, well, my boy would never do this on his own. We have to blame his wife.
Right. She's corrupted him.
Notice
that's not my son.
Do you think this being a family is... It's got to be adding another layer to this because people feel like they can say whatever the hell they want to their family.
100%.
So
like she has him by the balls. I mean, imagine your mother-in-law. I mean, that's just wow. Like I'm sorry. Who are you? Like what?
Yeah.
And she probably said that on purpose to hurt her feelings because you're not like that's like the ultimate thing you're not supposed to do.
And let's talk about how Susie didn't take none of that nonsense.
I know. I love that.
That's how you stand up. She didn't
100%.
take a bit of it. She held that woman's feet to the fire. Good work, Susie.
That is a mama bear though. Like they're protecting their child. And I know Tim, we said like we feel bad for them, which I do, but I also just want to give major props to them. Like I think they're going through a really hard time. They were willing to leave their cushy job and family. Like they're losing community and family to stand on what they believe is right. And whether you agree with them theologically or not, is admirable.
100%. The values are more important to me. I honestly am not nearly as concerned about what you believe as I am about the values that you hold. And anyone who will stand up for their daughter who is 5 years old and caught a potential brother-in-law, in the room with their naked 5-year-old, to defend that 5-year-old and to stand on that and say, no matter what happens, we are backing our child, no matter how much money it costs us, no matter what happens to our name, no matter the spiritual gaslighting. Yes, props to you. I don't care how you get there. I don't care what theological paradigm you want to use. If you end up there, my hat's totally off to you, and I support you 100% because it's the right thing to do, right? So I am all about it. I do think before we kind of wrap up and land the plane on this topic, is we all know more's going to come out, and we can cover this for the next couple of weeks. It would be good to at least play Joni's response. So Joni released a 2.5 minute long response, and we can wait for James to come back. Is he in the bathroom, Jen?
It was 2 nights ago, so it was like a couple days ago.
Oh my god, this is so recent.
Oh yeah,
do you think they're trying to bury it because of Thanksgiving?
No, I mean Julie Roy's. They know how to release a report. I mean, they had the exclusive on this. It's done. It's taken off. I don't think that no. I don't think that they're trying to bury it because of Thanksgiving. I just think this.
I
meant
the Daystar people.
Well, they're trying to bury it. Period.
Yeah.
I think they'll use anything to try to bury it.
I mean, and think about the audio that we just played. I mean, Jimmy Evans, this megachurch pastor, saying she's God to you. First off, that's blasphemous. No human is God in the Christian tradition. Like, Jesus is God. We follow Jesus, not people. So it's just unbelievable to hear him say this. So anyway, so before we kind of wrap up, we should play Joni's statement. So now that we know all that we know, we heard the audio, we kind of recapped the news story succinctly. And again, friends, you can go to juliaroyce.com and read both articles. The first one's about 20 pages. I mean, it's very detailed, and we couldn't cover everything that was said in that article. With all that in the background, here's Joni's response that she released on the Daystar Television Network YouTube channel and Instagram. YouTube channel and Twitter. And of course, comments are turned off, obviously.
And turned off everywhere. And they have a written statement of this on Instagram.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes today to speak from my heart to the Daystar family and friends. Recently, Daystar made the decision to terminate my son, Jonathan Lamb's employment. That decision was not taken lightly. It followed a 15-month review of Jonathan's performance and his refusal to take any steps to satisfy a detailed performance improvement plan put in place. He also refused my offer to participate in a formal mediation to resolve grievances in a biblical and professional manner. Rather than take any steps to improve his performance at Daystar, it seems clear now that Jonathan was focused on fabricating a smear campaign. You see, Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of Daystar following the death of his father and my husband, Marcus Lamb, despite the fact that Marcus had given a clear directive to the family and to the board that I would succeed him as president. Jonathan's disappointment in not getting his way only deepened when I married Dr. Doug Weiss, who has been such a blessing to me, the rest of my family, and Daystar. I can tell you that as a mother, as a grandmother, the situation saddens me deeply, and it grieves my heart because I love my family. I love all my children. I love my grandchildren. I love the work we've done together for so many years. And I had hoped that we could have resolved the situation in private. But now, Jonathan has given me no choice except to speak out. Everyone knows that we have dedicated our lives to spreading the love of Jesus. And to see it attacked by my son, Jonathan, and his wife is truly heartbreaking. I want to assure you that all the allegations that are circulating against myself and my late husband are completely false. We have already begun to take legal steps to defend ourselves, and we will address the accusations in a God-honoring way. We stand firm in our faith, knowing that God is with us, and his purpose for Daystar is far greater than any present challenge we may be facing. While this attack is very painful and wrong, I know that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against a spiritual enemy who seeks to destroy and divide no matter what the cost. I want to ask you for your prayers. Thank you for your continued love and support. Our team here at Daystar will keep you updated. Again, thank you for your prayers. God bless you.
There you go. Poor Joni.
Wow.
Spiritual manipulation. Weaponizing the word biblical.
Amen.
Spiritual abuse.
Yes, that's right, April. That's right.
I noticed how she doesn't even mention the child abuse. She said accusations against me and my late husband.
What accusations?
Yeah.
What God-honoring accusations?
Yeah, and you love your grandchildren? Oh, really? Do you? Do you really? Because one of them claims that they were SA'd by someone in the family. And what steps have you taken, Joni? I mean, here's the thing, right? If Joni has the power that she obviously has, why would you not move heaven and earth to find out who SA'd your grandchild? Why would you not pull every single... She's connected. She talks to people in positions of power. I'm sure she has people on the inside in all kinds of legal areas. Why would you not, the second that came to your attention, let's get our lawyers, let's start the investigation, what do we got to do? Why? Why would that be the first thing you do?
Because this happens a lot. I don't understand why they wouldn't want, like, their hero moment. Like, people would be very happy if you ousted a predator and saved the day. Like, But instead, she's like, I'm assuming she doesn't want anybody to hear about it because it'll reflect badly on the company. But it's like, the only right thing to do would be to report this person and protect your grandchild.
Yep.
There's no wiggle room.
The only way, and I don't know who Pete is, but the only thing that makes sense to me, if like why you would turn on your own child, is if it was, this is me speculating, to protect another child. That's the only thing that kind of makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, do we? I mean, I don't want to speculate on who this person is, but like maybe they are a high up person or something. Like I don't see why you would
or
risk
someone
it.
that was on air. Like I don't know.
All I will say, because this has been public, people have speculated. The speculation is that it was a brother or brother-in-law. Like it was someone in the immediate family. You know, someone that was in the
get him out of there.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm with you on this. That's what I'm saying. Is like this whole 2.5 minute long clip is such grandstanding. Again, we hear the pattern all the free. It's the same stuff. I could write this script for her ahead of time and tell you where she's gonna go. She's gonna blame the devil. She's gonna claim it a huge trial. God can't. If God's with us, who can stand against us? These accusations are completely false. Trust who I am. Blah 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 blah. And guess what? Time and time again, these people are usually found to be guilty or to have hidden stuff. Now, the problem is it comes out 6 months, a year later, after like the wave of media attention has passed. So it doesn't get the same kind of attention again. But over and over again, we find out that these people on these kinds of, on these screens here, people like Joni, tend to be the ones lying. Because again, there's no incentive for Jonathan and his wife to give up their very luxurious lifestyle and career working for an organization that their family owns that does $100 million in revenue. Why would you want to give that up? Why would you put your child through the false allegation that they were S8'd? What kind of parent would do that? It doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense.
Everything. Like it sounds like they're gonna sue. Like it's potentially like nobody does this just because they enjoy like bad things happening. Like it just absolutely boggles my mind.
I agree.
I know Joni said acts like they're going to take legal action against Jonathan. Tim, earlier in your summary, did you say that Jonathan was sued Daystar?
What I have here, and I could be wrong,
because I haven't seen anywhere that they've sued, but I didn't know if
maybe they're just trying to scare him.
It says here, the Lambs accused Joni of prioritizing the reputation of Daystar over their granddaughter's well-being, leading them to file a lawsuit against her. So to be transparent, I read the article once, and I had like an app kind of summarize it for me. So the lawsuit against her part might not be completely the case. I can look into that. So take that part with a grain of salt, friends. But certainly, I would imagine that if it hasn't happened, legal proceedings are in the works, especially now that this is public, and Joni has said we're taking legal action. So I would imagine this is going to get really ugly.
Right. So, well, there's a smear campaign going on somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't think it doesn't seem
you
like
should be smeared.
Jonathan.
So we will keep all of you apprised as this story unfolds. There's a lot more going on here. But yeah, that is the gist of it. Again, a lot of things. And I know a lot of our audience is probably hearing some of these clips and going, yeah, like either maybe I've experienced something similar to that kind of gaslighting, having a spiritual leader tell me, to submit to them. But this is what goes on. And this is why we have to expose this stuff, right? If we want healthy churches, it starts by getting rid of the rot and the corruption. And this kind of stuff needs to be exposed. Like, I don't enjoy it. It's not fun. I would much rather be talking about a story where Joni said, this happened and we took legal action and the police were involved and here's what happened and we're getting our granddaughter justice and we're restoring her with the legal process. Unfortunately, we have the opposite.
Just bringing in like a third-party investigator that can actually look into the whole situation. Like there's
even groups
better
that are
ways
specifically Christian that will do that for you.
Well, the problem is the problem for a lot of these folks is third-party investigators tend to be objective and find stuff they didn't want found.
Well,
that's why they leave them out.
In the article, they did bring in an investigator who was a personal friend who eventually recommended a deeper dive, and they lied to Jonathan and Susie saying, "Oh, the investigators found no reason to pursue further." So again, I recommend reading the article because it details this quote unquote investigation and how it was really just a sham cover up to say that we did an investigation. But yes, you're right. You want to hire third-party independent people who are able to do the vetting as objectively as possible. So, well, should we get to some tweets of the week and then call this episode a wrapped?
Yeah. Let's do it.
So Jen and James, we always do 3 tweets of the week that usually are pretty ridiculous, just to kind of land the plane on a different note than the serious nature of some of these stories. So let's start with our favorite, Mark Driscoll. Love Mark Driscoll.
Oh my God.
Mark,
you want to read
that's
this one,
T-shirt
April?
material.
He tweets, Judas was a deconstructionist.
What is it?
Judas ain't even that bad. Isn't he only like the villain character in like one of the 4 books?
Well,
like
Judas,
I don't know a lot
he
about the
played a
Bible,
pretty
but
big-
I remember even hearing that like the version of Judas you always hear about is only like there's like 4 versions of that story. In
Well,
the
there's
book.
a Gospel of Judas, but they
that one doesn't even
push
count.
that down.
I mean,
I love having your
Christian
perspective.
lore,
Period, like he's doing something. Judas was a deconstructionist. Period. You know,
Go ahead, April.
you know he thought about that. You
April
know he
set-
sat there.
Oh,
and
I know. I mean, I'll
He's
say,
hitting the vape, and he's like, "I'm gonna tweet this."
I mean, if you are called a Judas, I mean, that's like the worst thing.
Yeah.
I guess slightly better than being called Satan or satanic in this Christian lore world.
Well, April, Satan didn't betray Jesus. Judas did. So it's probably even worse than being Satan. You know?
That's true. Satan was very openly,
Yeah.
basically deceiving.
Fun
I gotta
fact,
say, though,
Even makes sense.
props to
fun
Mark.
fact about my life: I only learned about Jesus because of the scene in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," where somebody gets called Judas Iscariot Hogwallop, and I went, "Who in the world is that?" And my grandfather had to sit there and explain to me because of this movie who Judas Iscariot was. So
That's hilarious.
that's how we in the secular world learn our Bible stories. Is through
That must be nice.
tangential movies.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's nice. So that's tweet number 1. April, you gave me a bunch here. Which one do you want me to go to? I can go to
Do
Nancy
Meg.
Mace.
Meg.
Meg.
Yeah, Nancy Mace. So Megan Basham.
Yes.
Okay.
Wicked is out, and there was something about this that is like so close and yet so far away. Megan Basham tweets, hot take. I have not seen the movie yet, but I have always read Wicked the musical and book as an unintentionally conservative story. The might of an authoritarian government and a corrupt media paint a false narrative of Elphaba as Elphaba. How do I say that?
Yeah.
Elphaba.
Elphaba. Okay. False narrative of Elphaba as the threat to Oz's peace and security when she is actually fighting to protect the individual rights of ordinary citizens. Traditional education is dismantled in favor of new consensus thought imposed from outside the culture. The power of Oz is even interfering in their right to practice their religion, etc.
Wow.
I didn't know that media had metaphors. I thought everything was literal.
I've honestly never interacted with Wicked, so as far as I know,
I
this
read
could
the
be
Wikipedia.
true. But this
The
is, as far as
Wikipedia?
I know, it could be a piece of conservative media, and it just snuck under
Listen,
my radar.
so I haven't seen Wicked yet either.
I've seen
But
the musical on Broadway.
yeah, I will say every write-up that I've seen and metaphor that I've seen, it is clearly the conservatives are the bad guys in the
Right.
story.
Yeah.
Right.
They're the authoritarian government.
What the original was about?
Oh, Jen, I just told Jen this the other day, and she didn't realize it. I had a really cool history teacher in high school, but the original version of The Wizard of Oz was written about the silver standard and about American economics. The original Slippers were not actually ruby, they were silver, because my distant relative, William Jennings Bryan, was a proponent of that. And they thought back in like the 20s, whenever it was written, that adding silver to the gold standard would like save the entire country and save all the farmers and all that stuff. So the whole story of Oz is just a long-winded metaphor for the silver standard.
Huh.
Interesting.
You learn something new every day, don't you?
I just
Okay.
love
Thanks, Mr. Landry.
that like conservatives, especially now, have so much power, and Christianity is such a huge power
my
structure
I
in
know.
America. And when they watch movies about authoritarian governments, they see themselves as the oppressed
It is
and
wild.
not the oppressor. every single time. Like the persecution complex, it's like, how do you, it's maddening.
It's unreal because you think about too, right? The Republicans have the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the presidency. And Trump has nominated blatantly Christian nationalist people to cabinet positions.
Yeah.
Like, so really, like, they are the authoritarian government that they think is so corrupt and terrible. Like what happens, guys, when you become the thing that you think is your opponent's position, right? Because that's what just happened. And so it's hilarious to watch. And by the way, for Megan, I want to use her full name because that's what she goes by. For Megan, you know, COVID was the result of an authoritarian government. Like they still talk about how masking and social distancing during a global pandemic was corrupt authoritarian government regimes. Keep in mind, Trump was in office for a year and a half or 2 of those years, right? I mean, for a little bit. Wait, how long was it? Now,
he was at the beginning.
It was the pandemic really took off in February of 2020, and he didn't get voted out until later that year. So most of that,
most of
the
first
big
year. Thank you.
explosion was under him.
Yeah, right. Anyway, it's just folks like Megan truly live in an opposite, you know, upside down reality. She wrote a book called Shepherds for Sale where she insists that that evangelicalism is drifting towards liberal bias because of big funders, even though 82% of white evangelicals voted for Trump. Like it is unbelievable to me, but I digress. Okay,
it's always funny too when you're progressive in these situations, and because they end up talking about you were talking about how they have the whole government in there. Like they end up talking about how the progressives are blockading Trump and they stop him from doing everything he wants, and you just sit here as a progressive going, God, I wish that was true.
Right? Yeah,
I wish that progressive politicians had the power and capability that conservatives seem to think they do.
Well, yes, we can control. You know, Democrats can control hurricanes now. I do want to show the Nancy Mace one.
This one?
This is Nancy Mace in March of 2021. If you don't know who Nancy Mace is, she is the one that is going hard against trans people, specifically Sarah McBride, who is the first trans woman to be in Congress. She's saying, you will not be in my woman's restroom.
She's the one trying to start the bathroom bill within
very
by the way, it's going to be in the White House. It's going to affect all federal buildings. So the post office and shit.
Can I just say, isn't it wild that one trans person in Congress will start this bill process to do this bathroom thing? Dozens, hundreds of dead kids from gun violence, and they still do nothing. Isn't it amazing the priority? There's one trans woman in Congress, and this is a national story, right? And there's bills being introduced to stop the spread of the trans people from using bathrooms that correspond with their gender. But school shooting after school shooting, dead kid after dead kid, thoughts and prayers. Listen, nothing we really can do. It is if there's one reason to be enraged, this is it for me. Get out of here with your fucking false piety. You really care about kids and protecting people from sexual predators or from harm, because you obviously do not. This is simply a culture war issue for you, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks.
But I need y'all to see how people have become so extreme so fast. And you see a lot of people who used to be anti-Trump, like JD Vance, suddenly kissing the ring. And we've seen this so many times. But Nancy Mace, who is very anti-trans right now, tweeted this in March 2021. So just a little over 3 years ago. I strongly support LGBTQ rights. No one should be discriminated against. Religious liberty, gay rights, and transgender equality can all coexist. I'm also a constitutionalist. We have to ensure anti-discrimination laws don't violate religious freedom. And we just have to say, Title IX, a couple years ago, they added gender identity to Title IX to protect trans people. Religious exemptions already exist within Title IX. So there's always been religious exemptions for that. And then she just tweeted this week. She says, we support gay marriage and voted for the Respect for Marriage Act twice. However, if you think protecting women is discrimination, you are the problem. We don't care if you're trans. If you have balls, we don't want you in the women's bathroom.
I don't want you in the Congress.
Women's
Like,
bathrooms
you
have
do care.
stalls. How the hell do you even know?
Exactly. Every single one of these people have gender neutral bathrooms in their homes.
Right.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
the idea that a man is going to go through a transitional process just for the sake of being able to assault women in bathrooms is a complete fairy tale. Like, if a man wants to assault a woman in a bathroom, he can just walk into the women's restroom and assault a woman.
Right.
Like, trans people, that's not, trans people are trying to go unnoticed.
Right.
And also, what's missing from this conversation are trans men. You're not going to want a whole full bearded trans man in the woman's restroom. That's going to be far more uncomfortable for women
100%.
than a trans
And
woman.
that trans man.
And that trans man, exactly. Exactly.
None of us are happy
it's
about
so
this
upsetting.
arrangement. Why are we doing this?
Because it's never been about the bathrooms. It's about they don't want trans people to exist in public.
Yep.
They take away their facilities, and so they can't exist because everybody has to pee. It's like
it's the same thing as trap laws. It's death by 1,000 cuts. We can't just make you illegal as a person, so we're going to make every basic thing you have to do to be a human and live illegal somehow. And just box you into your house so we don't have to deal
and it's
with
never
it.
been
And
about
it's
kids
disgusting.
because they do this to the adults. We have in Missouri, like it's I don't know what the status of it right now because we just had an election is, but basically they were saying like below 25 you can't have trans affirming care. So grown adults cannot get the care that they need because some person in Congress decided to
It's unreal.
virtue signal.
We have freedom in this state until some brain dead conservative gets an idea in their head and writes a bill, and all of a sudden we have to bow to that.
Because
It's
it will
probably
not
the same in a
stop
lot of
here.
your
Like I said, like they just don't want them to exist in public because I don't want these things to happen. But I could see like them being like, okay, no trans teachers. No trans, this, that, the other, and it's like
that's libs
you
of
just
TikTok.
don't want them here.
They do that, right? They send bomb threats to people's schools who have trans teachers. Don't forget, Michael Knowles said we have to eradicate transgenderism. That's his words.
Yeah.
You know, it must be eradicated, something to that effect. So
I don't see. You can't be Christ-like and use the word eradicate. Like, it just not compute.
Usually we only do 3. I just want to do one more because this one really cracked me up. This is Seth Dillon. He's one of the founders of the Babylon Bee. He writes, a key difference between progressives and conservatives is that the latter had to be forced into second-tier echo chambers. They never wanted to leave the public square because they aren't afraid of being challenged. So, Seth really thinks.
25 words there.
Seth really
if
thinks.
You're conservative, if you're a conservative asshole, you have to proofread. Former and latter.
Well, Steph's point is that conservatives are willing to be bold and engage in the public square, and liberals or progressives have to leave and flee. What really is the truth, though, is that it is the conservatives often who start their own media companies, right? I mean, the Daily Wire, its own media right-wing company.
The Babylon Bee.
PragerU, the Babylon Bee now, Turning Point USA, Rumble. These are all websites that are designed for conservative voices only. It is an echo chamber. And the reason why people are leaving X is because Elon turned it into 4chan 2.0.
Yeah.
It's
nasty.
People call me very anti-Semitic tropes in my comments consistently on that website. So I'm not leaving because I'm afraid of being challenged. I'm potentially leaving because I don't want to be called an anti-Semitic trope or other racial slurs or the R word. I don't want to be called those things, right? That's the difference. Seth lives in an echo chamber. He has his own website called the Babylon Bee. They have their own news site called Not the Babylon Bee, which is like it's one of the most unaccredited, like egregious news sites that you can find. He lives on Twitter, and he has the gall to be like, us conservatives, we're not afraid of being challenged. We're not afraid of engaging the public square. Dude, you literally, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Read the room.
It's also so disingenuous because Seth Dillon claims to be Christian. Babylon Bee is supposedly, it's a Christian satire account. Like, have you ever tried to be progressive in a white evangelical church? Like, You are not welcome. You are ousted. You are called a Jezebel or a satanic spirit. You are laid hands on and tried to cast the demons out of.
Totally.
Like the idea that conservatives would never push out a progressive is like just is mind-boggling. And just
well, they
so
say that
discontinuous.
they say progressives have to live in their echo chambers and then constantly whine about our damn protests. Which is it?
Exactly.
I'm out in the street, you're mad. I'm in my house
the most
complaining, you're
argumentative people I
mad.
know.
At some point, I think you just don't like me.
All we can do is laugh, guys. Like, okay, again, like I don't know what to say to you, Seth. If you really think that's the case, I'm just not sure what to tell you. I'm not sure what to tell you. So
It's also like a lot of these same people are like, we just wish progressives would leave the country. Just leave the country. Like, let us run it like we want. Like, y'all are ruining everything. And then when people do leave, or people are like, I'm not going to Thanksgiving this week because I just can't feel like I can be around you. They're like, no, don't leave.
Yeah.
Why are you
Well, if
leaving?
my presence was so awesome, maybe you should have thought about that before you voted my rights away.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. It's almost 2 hours, guys. I think we did it. I think we had a killer episode with our friends, Fundie Fridays, joining. Jen and James, it was so great having you. Really quick, friends, if you made it this far, if you're into the whole episode here, 2 quick things. Number one, me and April are trying some new bits for this format, and we are. I will say, April and I are working on something that could change the game for 2025. We can't announce it yet, but we're working on it. But one thing I wanted to do was, I think it'd be fun to read like stories from the audience, April. And I was thinking with the holidays, I would love to hear some cringe holiday stories that we can read on air. So if you have a cringe holiday story, maybe it's from this past Thanksgiving, maybe it's from a year ago, maybe it's, I don't know. You can email it to, let's do podcast@thenewevangelicals.com. You can email it there. Send us your story. We'll read it on air. And the last thing I want to say is, it is Giving Tuesday on Tuesday, and we as a nonprofit are completely dependent upon the generosity of this community. So if you would be so gracious and consider donating to this nonprofit, that would be great. We have a lot of plans for 2025. We want to invest heavily in community resources, redo our website, and give you guys a place where you can be seen and heard, especially as we navigate a 2025 Trump presidency.
Yeah.
So we are working feverishly to give you guys spaces to connect with people, but we can only do that with your generosity, and Giving Tuesday is a great way to make that happen. So thank you for all of your support. You can donate at the link in the show notes or in the description down below. And as a nonprofit, all donations are tax deductible in the US. So that's all I got, friends. I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. April, good seeing you as always. Jen and James, loved it. And
love you guys.
Maybe I'll show up on your channel some point in the future. Maybe. We don't know yet. Possibly.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe.
That's
okay.
so
Well, that's all we got time
say.
for. Okay, bye. Bye, everyone.
Later, y'all.